Thanks for watching, everybody, and welcome to Poe Performance. If you have been around the channel for a long time, as a subscriber or a viewer, I really appreciate that support. Thank you. If you're new to the channel, I hope you decide to stick around because you appreciate the content. Content like today's, where I'm going to compare the Sig Romeo Zero and the Holosun 407k. These two red dot sights are extremely popular right now, and I believe will continue to be so, a lot due to their price point. Okay, both are very, very affordable. But before I give you my final thoughts and possibly a recommendation on which one I would buy if I only had the money for one, we got to head to the bench. So let's do that right now. The Romeo Zero comes in a 3 and 6 MOA, while the Holosun 407k has only a 6 MOA. But that 6 MOA dot is extremely clear, sharp, and defined. I had no problem picking that up in bright daylight. Both have shake-awake technology, so if they sit still for a period of time, the dot goes off, and then when you move the dot, it reappears back in the glass. Useful for a nightstand situation. If your firearm sits on a nightstand all night, you won't burn battery with a dot remaining on all night long. Okay? Battery life. Sig says that a 1632 battery will last 20,000 hours. Holosun says that the same 1632 battery will last 50,000 hours. Although technology can play a role in battery life, I doubt there's going to be 30,000 hours between the two on the same settings. So many factors are going to play a role in that. How often you use the dot, the battery type, where it's manufactured, how long it's set in a warehouse, etc. What I would suggest is this: change the battery once a year. I do mine on Independence Day, whether it's a red dot, a flashlight, or a weapon mounted light. Okay, now the Sig, to change the battery, you do have to remove it from the slide, as the battery is located under it, very much like the Trijicon RMR, whereas the Holosun came through big with a side tray. Very, very nice feature, Holosun. That's absolutely awesome. Although I will say this in defense of the Romeo Zero, guys, they did provide screws that have a lug, and you almost kind of have to press fit it through. So it's going to help realign the dot when you put it back on the slide to minimize how many rounds you spend and how much time you spend re-zeroing that dot. Height and windage adjustments are going to be on the side of the dots and on top. The Holosun does click, which is a very nice feature. The Sig does not. And it should be noted that a lot of people have had issues trying to zero their dot. They can't seem to get the elevation correct height-wise to make sure that their dot can be zeroed, and they've had to be sent back to Sig for replacement. That obviously is an issue. Mine has been fine though, no problems there. The Holosun seems to be better quality in that regard without question, just for the simple fact you get your nice audible clicks there. Just gives you that warm fuzzy when you're adjusting that dot. Bring it back up here and we'll talk brightness settings. For the dot, you're going to see the adjustments on the side of the Holosun are pretty obvious. The Sig is that dimple right back there by the glass. Now, while it's out of the way, it also can be an issue if you have really big fingers. And if your fingers are really big and you can't reach that to turn the dot on or adjust the brightness, you might try to use a tool of some type, and then you could scratch that polymer glass. All right, definitely advantage for the Holosun. Now, there have also been complaints of casings coming back from the ejection port, hitting this polymer glass and scratching it. Mine has been fine. I've had no problems with that, but it seems like a real issue and definitely a concern, because if your glass gets scratched up to the point of not being able to see through it very well, kind of defeats the purpose of having a red dot. The Romeo Zero has 8 daytime brightness settings, while the Holosun has 10, as well as 2 night vision. So definitely an advantage for the Holosun in that respect as well. Let's go ahead and talk window size and sight picture. Now, when I first looked at these dots, if you look at them separately, You would look at the Romeo Zero and think that window is bigger than the Holosun. But in reality, when you measure them and per the specs, and when you look at them side by side, it's just not the case. But you will notice how robust that Holosun housing is. It is thick and held up very well for Sage Dynamics drop test. The Romeo Zero went through a little bit of a torture test on the Armorer's fixed channel where he beat it up pretty good with his hand and it held 0. All right. Let's go ahead and throw the Sig on top of the slide. And guys, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be dinged for this by YouTube, but I don't care. Sometimes you just have to stand up to tyrants. So there's how your Romeo Zero will look on your 365 slide. Even though I'm not mounting a dot, their blatant ignorance with regard to firearms and safety will convince them that I'm doing something awful here, and I'm sure they're going to ding my video for it. There's your sight picture. Try to get my fingers out of the way. You can see a little overhang on the sides of the slide, but not much. Narrow integrated sight on the back, but it's nice if your dot were to go out. You can see some of that front sight. Okay. Take a look at the Holosun now, sitting, not mounted on the slide, as if that matters. Okay. Been some complaints about Holosun's logo. I promise, guys, if I owned Holosun, it would look just like that. You got a wider notch in the back for your integrated sight, which is a little bit faster from close distances at the range. I have no footage or proof of that. You're just going to have to take my word for it. Both integrated sights work. You see the same amount of the front sight in the front on the 365 XL. But there is no doubt that looking at these two and feeling them in your hands, the Holosun is definitely more robust, and it appears as such. As far as function and reliability goes, for me personally, I can only speak to my experience training and carrying both of these dots. I've had no flickering. They both have held 0. The shake awake has worked perfectly. The adjustments have been fine. I've had no problems with either dot whatsoever. Again, Sage Dynamics did do a drop test on the Holosun. It was actually the 507, but it's the same housing. And it only got a lamination crack in the glass, but it was fine as far as the dot and the function, so no problems with that. Over the long haul, we'll find out if a polymer dot was a good idea from Sig. Some of the problems that are out there in the market are bad. You know, the lack of adjustment, the problems that people have had with the glass scratching is definitely not something that we want to deal with when we put one of these on a carry gun. First up on the scale is the Sig Romeo Zero. Battery included. It weighs in at 0.4 of an ounce, 0.4 ounces, very light. The Holosun 407k weighs in at exactly 1 ounce, so still very light, but about 0.6 of an ounce heavier. If you're concerned with slide timing with your 365 XL, that is an OEM sight plate which comes in at 0.8 of an ounce, about right in between the two dots. I don't think there's enough difference there to make any impact on your slide function whatsoever, but it is something to consider. All right, let's get the scale out of the way. Let's do some caliper measurements. I realize that they have these specs on the websites, but I'm going to give it to you anyway right here. About 1.610 for the overall length on the Sig. 1.612 for the Holosun. Those measurements are going to be pretty much right on due to having to fit the slide cutout. The height of the Romeo Zero is about 940. The Holosun comes in at about $9.59. A little bit of difference, but not much. The width is about 935 on the Sig. The Holosun width away from the battery tray comes in at 944. Over the battery tray, about 990. Not a whole lot of difference there. Now, the one major difference you're going to notice right away is the construction of these two dots. The Sig is a weapons grade polymer housing and also a spectra coated polymer glass. I will call it glass throughout this video just for simplicity's sake. The Holosun is aluminum. It's 7075 T6 and it has an actual glass lens in it. That's going to be the glaring difference between these two when you first look at them. You just have to decide, are you okay with a polymer housing and a polymer glass in your carry optic, or would you prefer more traditional glass with aluminum housing? So the bench work is all done. Now it's time to give you my final thoughts on the Sig Romeo Zero and the Holosun 407k. Now the Sig, let's talk to that one first because I had this one the longest. I would trust my life with this dot. In fact, I have, and I would continue to do so. It's got nice features. It's light, it's functioned beautifully. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. I paid $199 for it. The Holosun 407k I've owned for a shorter period of time, and I paid $219 for that one. So essentially the same price point. To me, there is absolutely no comparison between the two. If I had money for just one of these guys, the Romeo Zero would not be it. I would trust my life to this one. Maybe you wouldn't, but guys, moving forward, this one right here, the 407k, will be on my 365 XL on a daily basis. It has the side battery tray, clickable adjustments for windage and height, aluminum housing, glass lens, simple adjustments on the housing. You can lock it out or you can operate it manually. It's waterproof. Guys, it is a tank. I would absolutely, without question, having owned a Trijicon RMR, I would put this on quality right there with the RMR without question. I know some Trijicon fanboys are going to hate me for that, but guys, I'm telling you, when you get this in your hand, you're going to realize just how good it is. In fact, I saw on eBay last week, there were people selling these for almost 400 bucks. And I thought, are you crazy? Who would spend that on those? And he actually sold 2 out of the 5 they had. Then I got it in my hand and I thought, you know what? I would spend 390 bucks on that dot. I think it's that good. I would spend 200 on the Romeo Zero and not a dime more. I'm glad I didn't. But this one right here, guys, I cannot recommend it enough. I will update you down the road if I have any issues with it. I don't foresee that happening. Okay? Now, let's talk really quick about packaging and then close the video out. This is the packaging from Sig. Guys, I have bought really, really cheap things in bubble packaging in my life. I'm not impressed, Sig. I've also bought nice watches and jewelry that came in a plastic box like the 407k. It's foam lined on the inside. It's got cutouts for the dot, screws, tools, and accessories, and it just looks good. No doubt, this was not an afterthought. I think this was, and I really think it was a fail on Sig's part. Chinese-made Holosun will serve you well, guys. I have no doubt whatsoever. Don't blast me in the comments below for buying China-made stuff unless you were riding a horse, because the rotors on your vehicle were made in China, or at least the material came from there. If you own Black & Decker, Levi's, or Craftsman, you have no room to talk either, because those are all manufactured offshore. I appreciate you guys watching. Any questions down below that I did not answer in the video, please feel free to ask. I always welcome that dialogue. However, guys, please do not jump on the video without watching and ask me questions, because I won't answer and I come off as a jerk. But I put time into this video to give you guys data and content, and it's frustrating to see questions that are literally answered the first minute into a video. So if it can't be answered in my video or on the website of these two manufacturers, please feel free to ask and I'll do my best to get you an answer. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. If you have the money for one, no doubt it's the Holosun for me all day long. Thanks for watching, everybody.